Good morning. This is House Talk with Wally Kerr. I'm your host, Dave McKay, joining us as always bright and early on this Saturday morning. Wally Kerr, good morning.
Top of the morning, my good friend. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Great. Had a really great week this week and ready to talk some houses today.
Awesome. Well, this week's show is sponsored by our friends at Oklahoma Home Inspection Service. That's Todd Stewart, right?
Right. He did another pre-inspection for one of my owners this past week on a home built like the mid to late 70s. The homeowner moving to Colorado. She and her husband really need to get this wrapped up locally.
Okay.
And I recommended a pre-inspection, and they were really open to it, and we are so glad we did. There were I think there were probably between 18 and 24 items, and a couple were pretty major. One of them was it looked like they might have some roof issues.
Ooh.
So they called their insurance company and turned in a claim. And then it also looked like they had some water that had been in the heat and air ducts down in the slab of the home, which is not highly unusual for an Oklahoma home that was maybe built in the 70s or 80s.
Okay.
We want to get that checked out and make sure that there haven't been any ductwork problems down in the slab, maybe any compromise of that ductwork. So, Oklahoma Home Inspection Service is available for pre-inspections to make sure and try to find the big stuff up front.
Yes.
So that a home seller doesn't lose the contract on their property once it's under contract. They're great with us, and they've worked with me for over 30 years. 405-366-8889. They're a guest here on the show pretty regularly.
Sounds like it did its job. They got to find out before getting too far into a contract with someone or anything. They could fix those problems, mitigate the headaches moving down the road. So that's fantastic.
And, you're right. You would think that if a home inspector came to your home and showed you issues, that maybe you'd be upset with the home inspector. But instead, her attitude was, wow, thanks for discovering these things.
Yes.
Tell you what, we're going to address the big 2 or 3 items. And then she said, I believe we'll just sell our home in present condition, but we'll disclose what we know. We'll give people the inspection report. Hopefully they'll be happy with this. And she said, I'd rather negotiate the price some and come off of the planned listed price and not have to do some of these repairs. So that's kind of the plan on that home.
Awesome. Well, speaking of plans, what do we have planned for this morning? What are we going to talk about? And give us an update on the market.
Okay, good. So today let's talk about, if you're going to be selling this year, how fast do you need to act now to get a home on the market? Because we're already in the month of May.
Yes.
And you and I know selling season is
right now.
Right now.
Yes.
So it's time to get it done. We're also going to talk today about how to negotiate the best deal on a home. If you're a home buyer today in a tight market where there's not a lot for sale, how do you negotiate your best deal for a home?
Okay.
You already know what the third segment is going to be when I say it's your favorite segment, Dave.
The real estate quiz.
That's right. You're on the hot seat today, baby.
Awesome. Love
we got
it.
some good true or false real estate questions that I think our listeners will enjoy.
Yes, and I owe you donuts from last week.
You forgot the donuts this morning. You're in trouble.
Yeah, I'm doubling down this week. That's what we're doing.
I want to see those donuts here ready on a plate next week, Dave.
Will do.
All right, and I'll bring the Starbucks. How's that?
Okay.
And then on segment 4 today, we're going to talk about best practices and best financing for real estate investing. For anybody who's a listener that thinks, I own a home now, so I'm not thinking about selling, I'm not thinking about buying, but I would like to dabble in real estate, or perhaps they already dabble in real estate. We'll talk a little bit about investing today.
We're halfway through May already. It's flying by. School is it's still in session for some kids. Some kids are out. So we're right on the cusp of families really making that hard charge into looking at new homes they want to purchase, get their home ready to sell. So if they haven't thought about it yet, how quick do they need to start acting in getting their home ready to sell and start to looking for a new home? Because we are now in the home buying and selling season.
Well, we are. So it was another busy week of sales. There were about 630 homes placed under contract over the last week in the MLS.
Okay.
Let's break that down for our listeners this week and talk about price ranges. So if I told you there were 630 homes placed under contract in the Oklahoma City MLS this last week, Dave, 17% of those were under $150,000. 48% of those homes were between $150,000 and $300,000.
Okay.
So that's where the bulk of the sales are.
Yeah, half of them.
Right. 25% of those were between, say, $300,000 and $500,000.
Okay.
And then above $500,000, up to $1 million, and I just did a $1 million cutoff point, about 9% of the sales.
Okay.
So what you just said is, yeah, we're at busy time of the season. We know people like to buy and sell during the busy time. So, and that would be spring and summer. The average days on the market right now, looking at all the homes that went under contract this last week, the average days on the market was 29. Now, a lot of our listeners would bat an eyelash and say, wait a minute, I saw the home down the street sell in just 4 days.
Yes.
Why is the average days on the market 29? The median, Dave, is only 7. So we're, medians, we both know what averages and medians are.
Yes.
Medians look at most of the data, right?
Yes.
So most of the data says that it's buying season, and most of the homes sold within 7 days.
Yes.
But because we're factoring in some of those homes that haven't sold and have been on the market longer, the average is 29 days on the market.
Okay.
So why is it a good time for buyers, who have been waiting, for homes? And that's because the inventory is increasing. So this is kind of unusual and a little bit different from what we've talked about the last 6 to 8 weeks on our show. There's actually more homes that came on the market over the last week. And over the last couple of weeks, the inventory's actually increased by 2 to 3% instead of falling. Here's what that's telling you and me. People that wanted to sell are jumping into the market before it's too late.
Yes.
And there's not quite as many people buying at this point, so supply has kind of outpowered demand, not by much, only 2 or 3% over the last week. So more people putting their houses on the market, maybe a little bit slower pace on purchases. Dave, I'll bet it's because we're at the end of school.
Yeah, okay, so it sounds like people are doing what they should be doing if they're selling their homes. They know it's almost that season, and they've done their due diligence. About 4 weeks ago, they got their home ready, and now it's been on the market last week and this week. And the people that are looking to buy, you're right, they haven't bought just yet or have decided to really start to shop around because their kids are still in school, and they're about to be in school. So I think that number is going to catch up.
And I believe it will too.
Of the buyers.
I think you hit it on the head. People are busy. Like one of my granddaughters is in high school, and she is really busy getting ready for finals and tests. But even 3rd and 4th graders have projects. They've got little concerts. They have shows. They have little graduations going on. Families are pretty busy right now. But as soon as school's out, the pace will pick up. So a couple of just really interesting facts. I saw this from the National Association of Realtors a couple of weeks ago. Do you know that baby boomers, as opposed to millennials, are actually proving to be the biggest movers in real estate from the summer of 2021 to the summer of 2022? The numbers are in. And would you believe that baby boomers actually outnumbered the number of millennials buying homes? Now, that's kind of interesting, Dave, because baby boomers right now are between the ages of 58 to 76. So here's why, and I think this was really interesting in the reason I wanted to bring it up.
This is a lot of retirees.
Well, it is. And they're the ones that have a lot of equity in their home.
Yes.
They may have owned that home for 15 or 20 or 25 years, have an enormous amount of equity because values have gone up so much.
Yes.
So they can afford to sell, and they've got all kind of a potload of money, and they can turn around and buy even when the market's high. And a lot of them are looking for that final home in their lives.
Okay.
So baby boomers, we're tapping into that equity, and they've been motivated to either move closer to family or to downsize. They accounted for 53% of sellers and 39% of the buyers from the summer of 2021 to the summer of 2022. Wow. Yeah. Just wanted to drop that in today. Thought some of our listeners might enjoy hearing that.
So with more homes being on the market and the sellers are going to be there soon, they're not there yet because kids are about to get out of school and the weather's going to be a lot better. Summer is almost here. If someone is thinking about selling their home, they don't want to miss the market. They may feel like the train has already left the station. What do they need to do to get going to assure that they don't miss the market now?
It's really interesting that you said that because a lot of people, Dave, wait until the 1st of June, until the kids are out of school to put their home on the market. Boy, that's a really short window because when you think about it, let's say someone is selling and they have children. And let's say that they're school age, and that talks about a lot of the market, right?
Yes.
People's motivation changes because maybe their family has grown, maybe the kids need bigger rooms. And so I see a lot of people that wait until June, let's say mid-June, early June, wow, that's late in the season because home sales really pick up in April, May, June, and July. But Dave, by the 1st of August, our market really cools here. It really, really does because school starts, like April 15th to April 22nd, right in that range here locally.
Yes.
A lot of parents would like the kids to be in the new community, in the new social gathering on the block they're going to live in.
Sure. They're buying late July.
That's about as late as most families really want to buy.
And if you're putting your home on the market in June, a lot of people have already have their homes picked out before you're even thinking about it.
That's exactly right. So 60% of the people, Dave, statistics show 60% of the people move during the summer between May and August. So if they're moving in May, that means they might have bought in April.
Yes.
Say 30 to 45 days before. By the way, you know how many moving trucks are in the U.S.? This is random.
I don't, but I believe you have the answer.
It's about 50,000. About 50,000.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, that's a bunch of moving trucks.
Yes.
It doesn't really seem to me like for the millions and millions, the 200-300 millions that live in the U.S., that doesn't seem like enough moving trucks to me, especially for this time of year. That's one of the things people have to watch. They may put their home on the market in 2 weeks, and they may get their home under contract quickly, but boy, call a mover fast, because that's tough if you wait 2 weeks before you move and find out you can't get a mover in time. So why do more people move this time of year? You hit a couple of the items. First, the kids being out of school.
Yes.
It is a time for less interruption. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to hurt the kids' grades right at the end of the school year, or perhaps at the first of the school year. So I think kids are a big part of it. You mentioned better weather. We have pretty mild weather here in Oklahoma. I think we get a lot more rain than some of the areas like, say, Southern California. Their weather's always nice, but certainly as you go north into Kansas and Nebraska and the Dakotas and Michigan and Wisconsin and New England, lots of snow there.
Yes.
But it sure is nice to move when the weather is nice outside.
Just makes it easier.
Yeah, and it's not inclement. One of the things we already talked about, why do people move this time of year more than any other time of year? There's just more selection available, right?
Yes.
More homes on the market, more people moving this time of year for the exact reasons we're talking about right now. It's also what I call a social season. You remember what it was like in your last move. You lived in one neighborhood.
Yes.
You moved to another one. It's always you move in and you think, I wonder if my neighbors are nice. I wonder if they're going to be good people. Then here they come over with a cookie sheet or banana nut bread all wrapped up for you. You think, wow, this is awesome.
Yep.
It's nice to get to know them when it's a little bit more casual at work. So let's talk about that. And I think that's another one of the reasons that people move during the summer season. A lot of people at the end of the year, there's a push at work to either get things done, hit sales goals, or get the year wrapped up to move on into the new year. That typically ends up being a really, really busy time. Christmas is a busy time for a lot of folks. Thanksgiving, New Year's, the holidays, football, bowl games.
Absolutely.
You like those, don't you?
100% I do.
I do too. So the year end is just a little more work and families seem to be busier. But work schedules during the summer, sales organizations aren't trying to hit sales goals quite as fanatically during the middle part of the year.
Sure.
It's a little more relaxed. A lot of families take vacations during the summertime.
Yep.
So I think a lot of things go into why do people sell this time of year. So the first thing I would tell you is if you're a homeowner now and you are thinking of selling a home, demand is a little bit slower than new homes going on the market, but not by much, only by 1 or 2 percentage points by the numbers. That tells you demand is really high right now. A lot of people plan to make their move during the summer. If it were me, and I'm making my best recommendation to our listeners, if you're going to be selling a home, I'm a 36-year broker. I would love to work for you. I'd consider it an honor to work for you this summer. So if you're going to sell, please don't wait until mid-June or July. I even remember one year, Dave, when I had 6 people call me in the month of August to put their homes for sale. And it was just before school started, and I thought, I never said it to the customers.
Yes.
Because in some cases they were relocating, and that's when they got their job orders. Mm-hmm. But I thought, wow, they're really calling as the market is going to slow down, going into the start of school the start of college football, whether it's OU, OSU, Tulsa University, or whoever your favorite team is. And then remember that the state fair can also be a distraction
Sure.
to real estate sales.
There are the best times of the year to buy and sell. And obviously, utilizing you as a professional at all times of the year is going to be advantageous. And, we've talked about this. You guys have become a Zillow partner in the last year and a half or so, which is really cool. So that kind of reminds me to direct our listeners to wallyhasthebuyers.com, where they can check out some other home listings there. And for more information, now, you have some special programs at wallyhasthebuyers.com that a lot of people don't offer. Tell us about some of the programs. If someone's getting ready right now, they want to sell their home, how can you make it easier on them to get everything ready?
So this one's pretty easy for me to answer. If our listeners have heard me across the Oklahoma City metro for the last 10 years, I've just been saying Wally has the buyers, and here's why. I've been collecting a database of buyers for over 13 years. Most of it comes from Google advertising. A lot of it comes from Zillow. It was really an honor. We got contacted by Zillow, Dave, a year and a half ago. They said, "You're doing great handling customers that you are getting from Zillow. You have a great team size. You can handle more incoming buyer leads than other teams because of the size of your team," which we have 31 people on our team right now. So when I say Wally has the buyers, I have this database of people in every price range for every metro area. So if you sat down with a realtor today and said, "I'd like you to place my home for sale," typically as a home seller, you sign the documents, hand them back to the realtor, and what are you asking the realtor to do? Go find a buyer for the home, right?
Sure, absolutely.
I don't need to go find a buyer. I've already got them in my database.
Yes.
From 13 years of advertising on Google, some people want to buy in 3 months, some people are 2 years out. They go to Google to start doing research, and that's where I am. So between having the buyers there and then being a Zillow partner, Zillow rings our telephones dozens and dozens of times each month, sending us new buyers that want to buy in communities all over the Oklahoma City metro area. And then we have the guaranteed sale program. In the unlikely event that your home doesn't sell in an agreed period, I'll step in and buy your home myself at a price that's agreeable to you. And our home sellers love that program also. And here's the key, Dave. I can create more demand for a seller's home than they can ever do on their own. And more demand means more buyers. More buyers means a higher price.
Yes.
And hopefully people bidding against each other to buy that home.
If there was just one simple number to remember.
You know that number, don't you, Dave? You got this one down by heart.
I'll go ahead and jump in here. 330-3000. And again, it's as simple as, I want to know maybe what my home is valued at. If I'm going to start looking, you could just text your address to 330-3000 and then give Wally, I think it's an 8. I think it's a 7 on a 1 to 10. Let Wally know, and he can give you a pretty good approximate value of your home.
I want our listeners to know that I think sincerity and doing what you say you're going to do is really important. I respect people's privacy. If they give me an address with their phone number, I'm not going to call that phone number unless they ask me to do so. That's really important to me, is integrity and honesty and sincerity. I hope that shows through in our program, and I'm glad to help you any way I can.
So, Wally, we just discussed, if you haven't put your home on the market yet, ways that you can get caught up with the homes that are that have been on the market for a couple of weeks. And we know that the buyers are going to start to pick up. So let's get to the buying side of things. Everyone wants a good deal. When you go look for a home, you look for these prices. What can I get that home for? In a market like this, where there's a lot of homes for sale and I'm a buyer and I want to get the best deal that I can, how does a buyer actually negotiate a good deal on a home?
So this is going to surprise you, Dave. And here's what I'm going to tell you to do, is get in the seller's corner if you want a good deal.
Am I giving concessions, like helping them, like we've talked about, win, or?
Not necessarily.
Because I want to win too.
We want it to be win-win.
Okay.
And if the seller perceives it as win-win, you kind of get in their corner instead of being an adversary. Think about two people sitting at a table mediating with an attorney. The attorney looks at the one party and says, "Tell your side." And then the attorney looks to party number 2 and says, "Tell your side." So how do you see that going? Don't you see those people sitting and bickering
Yes.
and trying to prove their point, make their case, and they just want to win?
Sure.
They want it to be win-lose. For sellers, selling a home is really stressful. It's a really, really stressful experience. You've done that before.
Sure.
I know. So because selling is stressful, try to get on the side of the seller and see it from their eyes and figure out how you might be able to help this be a little less stressful situation.
Okay, I see where you're coming from now.
You know, I
Okay.
wouldn't even put it past, you look at a home, you really like it, you like it enough, you look at it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and that night, you climb in the car with your honey, and you go drive by the property, and it's 7 o'clock, and son of a gun, there's Mr. Seller standing out in the driveway washing his car. And so you pull up in your car, wave, hey there, don't want you to think anything's funny here. We looked at your home today, and we absolutely fell in love with it. Seller comes walking out to your car. Well, thank you very much. I'm glad you looked at it. I know there was
Sure.
a showing today at 2 o'clock. Now how's the conversation go? Now you're getting to be buddies with the seller. Wow,
Yes.
why are you guys selling? Well, we got job transfer to Oregon, and we're going to have to move pretty fast. And so we really need a quick sale on the property. Oh, I see. How fast do you want somebody to close on your home? Well, we're going to sell our home here, move to Oregon, need to buy another home. Once this goes under contract, and I mean, we're ready to go, we're ready to move, we'd really like to have a 30-day closing. Or maybe it's the other way around. Well, we put our home on the market. We know the market isn't moving quite like it was in 2021 and 2022. So we put our home on the market, but if it's sold right now, it'd be a problem for us if we couldn't stay in it another 60 days.
So what could I do to help you with that?
Right.
If we happen to be so lucky to purchase your home,
There you go.
how could we help out with that?
It could be a forced move like a job. It might be a financial move. It might be that you want to be very careful about how you dig instead of saying, why are you selling? That could really put someone on the ropes who might be selling for financial reasons.
Sure.
So maybe it's more like, wow, we really love your home and want you to know we're really excited about it. Can you tell us, if we were to make an offer on your home, how fast you would want to close? And they might say, yeah, I've got some debt I'd really like to get paid off. They're probably not going to say that. But instead of saying, why are you moving? I'd probably leave that more open-ended. How quickly would you like to close on your property? And then maybe questions like, what's most important to you? Is it a quick close? Is it a longer close? Would you like to see more earnest money? Would you prefer to see a pre-approval letter from a local lender? Because I'm working with someone out of Texas. I'm working with a bank back in Chicago where we used to live. And the seller
Okay.
might say, yeah, I'm a little uncomfortable working with an out-of-state lender, and I would really prefer to see someone pre-approved with a local lender that I would recognize. Now they're telling you what's most important to them. What if the seller said, I'd probably take a little bit less for my home if I didn't have to fix all the little bitty tiny things that it seems like a lot of buyers ask for? Let's face it, Dave, a lot of people go hire a home inspector.
Yes.
And what's the home inspector do? Makes a long list of
Yes.
everything that needs to be fixed.
Yes.
And the home seller is on this short timetable for closing. Let's say you've set a 45-day closing. And so you get the inspections done. Now you hand the seller, in a lot of cases, a laundry list of what needs to be done. That seller might give you an indication of how they feel about these repairs and what they want to do. The seller might say, tell you what, I can promise you all my appliances, my heat and air, my hot water heater are all in great shape and there's no problems at all. Then I probably go back, sit down, and when I make my offer, I may say, seller shall only be responsible for repairs or replacements to major mechanical systems, like the plumbing, like the electrical,
Yeah.
the hot water heater, the heat and air.
Sure.
Hey, the roof should be in good condition. I'm going to get a roofer, okay? There's other things. Is the buyer going to qualify? Again, a really good pre-approval letter. The inspections and the repairs. What about appraisal concerns? So the seller might say, we don't know exactly how much our home is going to appraise for, and we only bought it a year ago, so we're just kind of concerned about what an appraisal might come in at. Okay?
Okay.
And so that's probably where the buyer sits down and gets really comfortable with their realtor, someone like me, that the seller is going to ask a fair price. And they may say, I'm not concerned about the appraisal contingency. I'm willing to take the appraisal contingency out, but I'm not willing to pay above this price. So if you lock in a price, but then you make it not contingent upon the appraisal, you may have to have a little more money in the bank to do that.
Sure.
But you want to alleviate the seller's concerns about perhaps the appraisal.
And we've talked about that before. So if it's if I'm offering $200,000 and it appraises at $195, of course I can only get the loan for $195, but the extra $5,000 I'm giving to the seller. Because, again, I told them, don't worry about that. We'll remove that contingency. That's how that's going to work, right?
Right. You could meet in the middle. If it appraised for $195 and the sales price was $200, the buyer could say, I'm only willing to pay $195.
Okay.
Or they could write into the offer and say, tell you what, so long as it appraises for at least $195, I'm willing to give $200,000, which means my required down payment plus an extra $5,000 on top of the required down payment.
Okay.
And then another one, I really like this one, is once the inspections are done and the buyer knows they've got a good pre-approval letter, is once the inspections are done, is maybe telling the seller and saying, listen, I'm going to give you so much confidence that I'm going to buy your home. I'm not going to back out. I'm not going to change my mind. I'm willing to either A, make my earnest money non-refundable if I don't close due to my fault, the buyer, or number two, how about if I increase the earnest money inside the transaction? Or number three, increase the earnest money, make it non-refundable to give the seller the peace of mind that the buyer's not going to back out a week before closing.
Yes.
There's a lot of people that worry about that, Dave. Wally, what happens if my buyer backs out before closing? What are my options?
Yes.
And I tell them the truth.
It's stressful.
It's very stressful. You can keep their earnest money, or you can go into a long 6 to 8 month court battle and try to make them buy your home. But in the meantime, you can't go sell it to somebody else. Doesn't really do a seller any good.
No, it doesn't.
And then for some sellers, they would like to have a longer closing period for the certainty that they're going to be able to find a suitable replacement home. Why not write an offer for a home that you really want? Find a good lender like we use with Gateway Mortgage, where you can get a longer loan lock when you contract for a home with a float down option.
Yes.
Right?
Love that.
To where if the rates come down, you would have the option of doing so and stepping down in rate. Why not if the seller, let's go back to this man we were talking about earlier. He's moving to Oregon. It's a job transfer. And he says, we could move really fast, but we just are afraid we may not be able to find a suitable replacement home. So, Mr. Buyer, instead of writing a 45-day closing or a 60-day closing, would you give us up to 90 days? But as soon as we find a home up there, we'll go ahead and contract for it, and we'll close as quickly as possible. Here's a quick story, Dave. One of my recent sellers in Norman bought a very nice home in the $600,000 range. She did a quick closing to have access to her money. And then she started shopping out of state, and the market is so high in price and so tight up there that we visited recently, and she said, I've just decided to rent for now. So at least she had, and the buyers were really good to her.
Yes.
They said, tell you what, you can be in the home until the month of June, and we'll go ahead and close in April. You can stay inside the home and do what we call a lease back, where the seller stays inside the home, leases it back after closing from the buyer. These buyers were awesome for her to work with. They gave her some time to try to locate another home out of state. Unfortunately, she couldn't find one, but at least the buyers were really good to her. You know what she told me on the phone the other day, Dave?
What's that?
She said, these buyers have been so good to work with. She said, I am so glad I sold to them, and I really appreciate them. That's what you call getting in the seller's corner.
You listed so many things about when I pull up to that house and talk to the guy out there watering the lawn or washing his car. So many different things that I can have a chat about that would just put me leaps and bounds ahead of other buyers and just really on his side.
Get on the seller's side. If he's driving a car that you would never buy and he is washing the car, tell him how beautiful his car is, how beautiful the lawn is, how beautiful the house is, how you love the neighborhood. This is getting on the side of the sellers. So, there can always be concerns. Remember, I'm a 35-year broker. I love doing this show What I really love doing, Dave, is helping people like what we're talking about right now. So if I can help you in your transition from one home to the other, whether you're selling or buying, I'd consider it a privilege to work with our listeners. So call me anytime at 330-3000 or feel free to shoot me a text.
Wally, it is time for the favorite segment of the morning, at least for me.
Do, 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 do. No,
True or false real estate quiz.
I thought we were doing Jeopardy today. I had the daily double over here in my folder.
Okay, so when you ask me a question, do I have to answer in the form of a question?
Let's do that.
Okay.
Okay, maybe we better not. Let's keep this simple. So we do some true or false questions.
Yes.
Things that might help our listeners learn a little bit more about real estate, and some things that might surprise them.
And I haven't seen these, so we go in completely blind.
I have not
give my
given
honest
you,
answer.
That's right. So you haven't had a chance to look at these. I'm going to start out easy, and we're going to progress with a couple of tougher questions. How's that? Okay. A home inspection is optional and can be skipped if a buyer feels confident about the condition of the property. True or false?
I almost was going to say true, but then I thought about the banks. And they want to know if they're lending money to you, is this the value of what they're lending you for it? Is it in good shape? So I'm going to say that is false. You have to get a home inspection.
Dave, get out the fire extinguisher because your back end's on fire. This is a true question. This is actually a true statement.
Man.
A home inspection is optional and can be skipped if a buyer feels confident. Do you know that the lender doesn't get involved in the home inspection part of this?
No.
So even if you're borrowing money, the mortgage company is never going to ask and say, are you going to do a home inspection? You might buy the home from your brother. You might buy it from your best friend. And you might say, I know you've taken care of your home. Or you might say, gosh, this is a home built by a builder 2 years ago. I really know there's not going to be any major issues. I'm just going to buy it in present condition.
I confused this with appraisal.
Okay, well, let's go true or false on this. A home appraisal is the same thing as a home inspection. True or false?
The same thing? No, that's false.
Yeah. A home appraisal determines value. A home inspection determines condition.
And the bank is interested in the value.
Very
That's
much
why
so.
you have to get an appraisal.
Now, this is one we've never talked about.
Okay.
If you've got impeccable credit, great job history, and you're putting a lot of money down, there are a lot of mortgage companies that will actually waive the appraisal cost. So they would look and say, Dave, you're a great credit risk. Your income's great. You've been at your same job for 25 years. Your credit score is really, really high, and you're putting a large down payment down. We're actually not going to require you to pay $500 for an appraisal because you're already putting so much down that the risk for the bank is very low.
And you're working with Wally.
I'll leave that alone. I'll leave that alone. True or false, Dave? Property taxes are based solely on the value of a home.
Property taxes are based solely on the value. Somehow I'm going to say this is false.
It is.
Okay.
It is. It does have to do with the sales price
Sure.
because it's going to be the assessed value is what taxes are based on.
Okay.
Property taxes aren't just on the house. They're based on where you live, the money for school districts, the money for libraries.
Okay, so yes, I thought it was the whole community. That does play a whole a part in that. Okay.
And it can be, for years and years, I've known that typically taxes are higher in the Deer Creek School District. They're higher in Nichols Hills, inside Gaillardia. So it has to do with property improvements in that area, libraries, roads, transportation, school district bond issues. So it's not just on the value of the home. The property taxes are based on the tax millage rate or the assessment rate in that area.
There's quite a bit that goes into it.
There is. Oh, I like this one, Dave. Okay. How many shows have we talked about the Fed? Now, we didn't talk about the Fed today.
We have not.
It's been kind of a quiet week. True or false, Dave? The Federal Reserve sets mortgage interest rates.
Oh, that's false.
And why is that?
The feds are basically setting a rate for all of commerce. And banks for home buying, home lending, that's just a small part of it. So they kind of go off of that as a barometer and set it where they see fit to set it.
They try to be, yeah, that's right. That's right.
Okay.
The Fed loans money to banks. So it's the overnight rate is the Fed's rate.
Okay.
Fed's overnight rate right now is about 5.1%. If you go in to get a mortgage today, you may pay 6 5/8, which means if the Fed's rate is about 5 1/8 and the bank's rate is about 6 5/8, that's what we call yield spread. That's how the lender makes their money doing loans.
Yes, that's their portion.
It takes a lot in operations to run a mortgage company with processors and underwriters and the risk of doing so and conforming to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac guidelines. So, yeah, the lender's got to make a profit.
And I've heard yield or yield spread, but I didn't know exactly
That's their
where
profit.
that was applicable to. So now you just cleared that up for me.
That's their profit. So the Federal Reserve, you are right. That's false. They don't set the mortgage interest rates. Each individual mortgage company does that.
Okay.
All right. Now we're going to get a little tougher here, Dave. Okay. Crowdfunding allows you to pool your money online with other investors to purchase property or a share of a property as a group of people. True or false?
This is true.
That is true, and I would have had a hard time making up a false answer to this one. So, Dave, it's different from REITs, real estate investment trusts,
Yes.
coming into the Oklahoma City area and buying up rental properties for sale for investors that have put their money here. Here's how REITs are different from crowdfunding. When you buy into a REIT, you're actually buying shares, sort of like you're buying stocks through a broker rather than directly actually buying a real estate project. With crowdfunding, your money's going directly into a specific project. In other words, let's say you and I found an apartment complex together.
Okay.
And you said, hey, I've got a brother that's a doctor. I've got a financial planner that I really like. I've got a couple of friends that are wealthy. I trust all these people. We'd like to go in and buy this together inside a partnership, this one specific project.
Okay.
That's what crowdfunding is. So your investment might pay dividends, or it might increase in value over time to where you buy this, maybe you buy this apartment complex for $2 million and you go sell it for $3.5 million 6 years down the road. And the people that you've done this investment with, this crowdfunding, all get to share in the proceeds. It's really a partnership.
So I knew this was true because I saw this on a show last night.
Did you really?
Yes, I 100% did. And by chance, they were getting people together to buy a home. The home they were wanting to buy was the original home that The Godfather was filmed in.
Oh, my gosh.
And they wanted to buy the home and then use it as an event space to hold weddings in the backyard and kind of go in and make it just how it was in the 70s when the movie came out. I saw that last night. So right when you went to that answer, I went, well, here's a freebie.
You threw me for a loop today.
Okay.
I thought when I said crowdfunding, you'd have one eye that rolled in and the other one that rolled in the back of your head. But you were so confident when you said that was true, and that's amazing that you saw that last night.
Yes, that was it. That
Amazing.
was it.
Here's the last one today, Dave, on our true or false quiz, and that is a short sale is a way to avoid foreclosure. This may help some of our listeners who might be in some difficult financial situations right now. Maybe you're behind on your payments. Maybe you've been notified from your mortgage company that you're being sued and that they're going to take your home if you don't do something about it. So, true or false, Dave, again, a short sale is a way to avoid foreclosure.
Now, we talked about bankruptcies and buying homes kind of in that situation about 4 or 5 weeks ago. So if I miss this, you're going to roast me. So I should know this, I think. But I'm going to say the answer is true, yes.
Yes, sir. You are right. So good job there. Folks, he was sweating it hard.
Sweating that one out.
I had the fire extinguisher out. You were going to be on fire again, Dave. So a short sale is a way of going to your lender and saying, here is a letter that explains what's happened. I've lost my job. I've had a medical accident. I can't work anymore. I'm unable to make my payments. I don't have money in savings. And so it's a letter you send to the lender begging for their help. The lender doesn't want that house back as a foreclosure, Dave. Homes sitting on the streets that nobody's living in. Number one, if the utilities are on, maybe a water pipe breaks and does $15,000 or $20,000 worth of
That's
damage
just
before
cost
somebody
them
finds
money.
it. Costs them money. What happens if somebody breaks into that home? Starts spray painting the walls. Starts vandalizing it, taking the appliances, taking
That's
the
horrible.
light fixtures, taking the breakers out of the breaker box. So this is where you go and write a hardship letter to the lender. You tell them what your income is, what your debts are, what your credit card balances are, and say, I need help. I don't want you to have to foreclose on my home. Would you consider taking less because I don't have enough money to pay off my mortgage? And the lender, in many cases, will grant the right for you to do a short sale. A short sale for our listeners just means the mortgage company is going to end up short in the end.
Yes.
I've seen mortgage companies approve short sales where they were going to lose $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. The homeowner doesn't have the money to pay off the mortgage. Mm-hmm. The mortgage company doesn't want it sitting vacant and the owner moving out and the home sitting and having the chance for vandalism.
That could cost them double that in the long run.
So a short sale is something that your mortgage company can approve that will allow you to sell your home for market value, even if it doesn't pay off your mortgage balance and any real estate fees involved in the transaction. They take a little bit longer to get done, several months, but it's a really good step in the right direction for any of our listeners who are in a financial crisis, who feel like they probably aren't going to be able to keep their home, and would like to make sure they don't get this big, ugly foreclosure on their credit report that will damage their credit for several years. So if you are in that situation, call me. I'm a short sale expert. I'll be glad to give you the best possible advice to lead you down the right road where you can continue to live in your home until closing, do a short sale, and not have a responsibility to your mortgage company after the home sells.
Okay, so how did I do this week?
I think you did just great. I think you hit a minimum of 92%. I'm helping you along there a little bit, Dave.
Yes, you are.
I think you got at least the 70% minimum for the true or false, so we'll be back with it next week.
We mentioned crowdfunding, and I was excited to know that. I did watch that show last night, and you mentioned, well, talking about that question, a form of investing. And I know you just had your first investors webinar.
Yeah, we did.
You have another investors webinar coming up soon, right? What's the date of that?
We're going to do that every first Saturday of each month.
Okay.
So we did it this last Saturday, and the next investors seminar that people can register for by going to wallytalkshouses.com. There's a link up at the very top. They could register for the monthly investor seminar. So the next one will be Saturday, June 3rd at 10 a.m.
I know investing is a good tool for acquiring wealth, setting your family up in the long run. Give us a couple of reasons how we can go about that will get us to the point where we're ready to invest.
So I just designed another true or false question for you, Dave. Okay. I'm moving back one segment. True or false, Dave? Time goes by fast.
That's true.
I can't believe it's been 27 years since I bought my first investment property. It's all paid off now. My son and my daughter-in-law and my grandkids are now living in it, and we're providing that for them. So for us, this is pretty cool to have bought a property,
yes,
paid it off, and now allowing them to live there as my son joins me now, Chad.
How great is that?
In the real estate business.
How
just
great
amazing.
Is that to be able to do that?
They decided they wanted their kids in Norman schools. It's just amazing to have my granddaughters living so close now, and then my son and my daughter-in-law joining us. So the investing part of this, we own 11 homes or duplexes now, all free and clear. And we started those investments. The first one I bought was this one that they moved into. That was 26 years ago. I'm going to surprise you a little bit with this. If someone needs financing, I don't think this is the time to invest in residential real estate right now.
Okay.
Now, for people with cash, I'm all for it.
Okay.
You and I have talked about this over the last couple of months. If someone had $1 million sitting in the bank a year ago,
yes,
what's that $1 million worth today, Dave?
It's going to be worth about $930,000.
You're exactly right. If
right?
There's been 7% inflation, I think you bingoed on that. I think it's 6 to 7%.
Well, my
nationally.
math has improved over the last couple of months with the show as well. We know that.
Yeah, you had a 10 key. You had one of those.
Yes.
Standard deviation calculators where you were doing math the first couple of weeks.
It's just cash. I'm not doing anything with it but let it sit in the bank, and it's losing value. I'm not losing money, but it's losing value.
A year ago, you could have taken that $1 million in the bank, spent it, and it would have been worth $1 million at that time.
Yes.
But with 7% inflation, now that $1 million is worth $930,000, approximately.
Everything being equal, I buy $1 million home. I might have $300,000. I might have $450,000. I buy a $300,000 home instead of that being worth $290,000, that home has now increased in value. It might be worth $310 or something like that.
Absolutely.
And when 20 years go by and I want to give something to my son and then the grandkids, there's now a home that is now valued over $400,000 where there's a lot of equity. And it's something that I can hand down, and now they have something that could be a rental property to gain income off of, or they can move on in and have something that's paid
Exactly
for.
as
It could
it-
be paid for.
Exactly as I'm doing with Chad and Holly,
Yes.
my son and daughter-in-law. I think the easiest way to think about it is this. If you had that $1 million in the bank a year ago and now it's worth $930, you lost $70,000 in value. That might have paid for a third of a home. That might have been a $70,000 down payment or $70,000 that you could use to buy a $200,000
Sure.
home. So if someone was going to finance today, here's some real simple financing things to understand for investors. The more you put down, the better interest rate you get. And that's maximized at about 25% down.
Okay.
Let's do a super easy example. Let's say today, Dave, that rates are about 6.5% on a conventional 30-year loan with a good credit score, and let's say a loan amount above $150,000, $200,000.
Okay.
If an investor puts down 25%, you're going to add about 1% to the interest rate for an investor because it's not an owner-occupy. They're renting it out instead of living in it.
Okay.
So with 25% down, that interest rate, if rates are 6.5 today, that interest rate's going to be about 7.5 for an investor with 25% down. And with only 15 to 20% down, that interest rate's going to be closer to 8.5%.
So do I guess I'm disclosing that when I'm buying the property, what I'm going to use it for?
Yeah, you have to certify and sign papers with a mortgage company
Okay.
that says, I'm going to own and use this property as my principal residence. And,
Okay.
and why is that? Because, Dave, what would happen if you wanted to go buy 10 homes and only put 15% down? And then what if the market reversed and the values dropped and you decided to walk away from all of those homes? So you do have to certify to the lender
Sure. Okay, I understand that now.
that you're going to use these
Sure.
either as rentals or it's going to be owner-occupied.
Okay.
And when you sit down and make the loan application anyway, they're going to ask, well, do you own a home? And you're going to
Yes.
say, yes, I do. Okay, well, let's see what kind of equity you have in your home, how much you owe. So you're disclosing already that you own a home anyway.
Okay.
So I feel like long term, and I think you agree with this, Dave, the pressure now that Fed gets inflation under control, tries to target for that to be no more than about 2% per year, there's a long-term likelihood that interest rates will come down. I wouldn't rush into a market right now that is this red hot. A perfect rental home is something in the range between $125,000, $150,000 bottom end up to maybe $300,000.
So you
on the
could
high end.
overpay on
Easily.
just the price. Your interest rates are high.
Yeah, you
There's
hit it.
competition for these homes.
That's it.
Boy, that's a tick, 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 tick on a $300,000 home. You're overpaying in the tens of thousands.
And then we talked about property taxes. So property
Yes.
taxes on a lot of homes out there. Let's say it's a $250,000 home today. That property tax assessment might not have caught up with how hot the market's been.
Sure.
So the property tax assessment might only show the home is worth $180,000 at the county assessor's website. If it sells for $250,000, the taxes are going to go up a lot.
Yes.
So investors need to be really careful about looking at how that value will change at the county assessor's office. Let's face it, if it sells for $250,000, that's what the county assessor figures it's worth. So for that whole year after the sale of the property, the county assessor can readjust those property taxes, the assessed value, based on what the new sales price was.
Okay, so scenario. Let's just use mine. My son's in school right now in college, and I believe wants to further his education down in Norman in a couple of years. I think I want to buy a nice small house. Maybe it's a little fixer-upper, so I can get a little cheaper. My son's going to live in it for a couple of years. Maybe we get some roommates, and that helps pay for some of it right there. And then afterwards, I have a decision where, okay, I didn't pay rent for him to be down there. I made an investment, and now I have a little bit of equity. I'm going to learn through your seminar, and you might kind of disclose a little bit now.
These are all really good thoughts on your part. I would say that you're probably a prime candidate for being an investor. Number one, if you have great job stability and income. I think the people that would probably benefit from it the most. So I bought my first rental property when I was in my late 30s.
Okay.
And we bought quite a few when we were in our late 30s, and then in my 40s, and then more in my early 50s, and now I've slowed down on buying. So it's allowed me to get these things paid off one at a time. The values have gone up a lot. Here's maybe a statement that some of our listeners would agree with. You probably would find fewer investors buying and holding real estate long-term that are maybe in their 60s or 70s.
Sure.
They're looking for cash flow from just buying a property and taking the monthly income that comes in. But I don't know that this is the time to do it. And you hit it on the head a while ago, Dave. You would also need to look at what financing would cost. You need to make sure you've got a good down payment, so you want to save for a while.
Sure.
You want to look and say, how long am I going to own this property so that I can pay it off? And hopefully it will appreciate over time. I think the things that make it less likely to be as strong as an investment right now for investing in real estate is that rates are up. Home values are way high on the properties that really fit the perfect model. Those $150,000 to $300,000 homes, that's red hot. At the first of our show today, we looked at that being 48% of the sales in the marketplace over the last week.
That's
were
right.
between 150 and 300. So I think that market is pretty picked over. There's not a lot of selection. They're selling really fast. You have to go in and compete with other buyers, and the finance rates are a little high. Dave, my recommendation to investors on this last Saturday morning show was save your money. Now, inflation's slowing down a bit. If you had $1 million today in the bank and you haven't done anything with it, if the Fed achieves their goal of no more than about 2 to 3% inflation per year, even if we hit 3% next year, that $1 million is worth $970,000, maybe 3% depreciation, right? So if you have cash, you might still be a pretty good candidate for investing.
Okay.
I'd just be careful about how much you pay for a home. And if you will need to finance and plan to put 20 or 25% down, I think Wally's best advice for right now is why don't we wait? And let's see what the market does in 6 to 9 months. I'll continue to do these investors webinars the first Saturday of the month at 10 o'clock. Real estate investing, typically, there's bigger returns in most cases with long-term investing. Save your money. Let's figure out the best time, because remember that real estate investing typically is over longer term to really get the higher gains.
Okay, so that's investing and buying. But if I have a home and I'm ready to sell this year, we can visit wallyhasthebuyers.com. Tell people how the guaranteed home sale program works.
It's real simple. In the unlikely event that someone's home doesn't sell in an agreed period, I'll step in and buy the home at a price agreeable to them myself. So that's a guarantee our listeners love, and they like that because it's certainty. Dave, most of the people that call me are looking for certainty in their life.
Yes.
Can I get a home bought? Can I get something that's going to satisfy my family's needs? Wally, I really need to sell this home. We're moving, we're relocating, financial, whatever the reason is that someone's selling, they need the certainty, and that's what we offer in what we do.
Today's House Talk with Wally Kerr has been sponsored by Oklahoma Home Inspection Service. To learn more about a pre-inspection and how valuable those are, give Todd Stewart a call at 405-366-8889. That is 405-366-8889. If you miss that, you miss the company name, you miss Todd Stewart's name, just lob a text over to Wally Kerr at 330-3000. He'll give you that info. We air this show Saturday mornings at 7 a.m. right here on KOKC, and you can hear the replay Sundays at noon right here, 1520 KOKC. It's real easy. So if you just got in on the late part of it, you can listen Sundays at noon. If you're thinking about making that move, give Wally a call or just text him 330-3000. Visit wallyhasthebuyers.com. Again, I've mentioned this before. It's so easy. If you want an estimated value for your home, just text your address to 330-3000. 3000. You'll get no phone call, just a text. It's that easy. You can hear replays of this show on Wally's YouTube channel. Listen to the podcast on all the podcast platforms, including Apple, Google Podcast, Spotify, Podchaser, iHeartRadio, many others. Previous episodes can be found on his website, wallytalkshouses.com. Thank you for listening to House Talk with Wally Kerr. Wally,
have a great week.